goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello there and welcome to the program. I'm Lynn Cullen. I am live. Chris Potter, who joins us on Wednesday, is MIA. I'm waiting for him to burst through the door any moment, but as far as we know, he will be here. He's just being fashionably late. Lots of things to talk about today. Actually, quite a few of them on the local level, something that I realize I tend to avoid local political issues. Well, you screwed up today.
Sorry.
Chris Potter joins us. How you doing?
I'm all right.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about some local stuff
Okay.
that, I normally don't. I don't know why I get too close for comfort, I guess, is what it is.
Too dull for comfort.
Well, that's part of it, too. It just, much of it seems so dull.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the cops.
Yeah.
Because there just seems to be a lot of lousy stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I'm completely unclear. So we got a federal grand jury now in regard to the chief of police and a contract for blah, blah, blah. We've got the botched call to Cassandra Wade, and who is now dead. That was a 911 call. We have the chase on the Southside down the extraordinarily populated, busy Carson Street with how many cops? 5 separate cops in plain clothes, all doing off-duty.
Yeah, probably not in plain clothes actually, but off-duty.
Oh, you think they are in cops?
Yeah, I think when they're doing,
but in uniform, firing shots.
Yeah, in one case at the wrong car.
In one case, at the wrong car. Yes. Okay. So, I mean, I don't even know where to start, but it seems like the police department is almost in a rogue state in some places. They're not working very well.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not operating right.
Yeah, it'll be an clearly, clearly there's some questions being asked about Chief Harper, who the mayor has said really he stands behind.
Right.
This happens to be happening just a few months before a mayoral election, and there's no doubt that that's going to affect both the way people raise the issue and the way the mayor responds to it.
The fact that this is coming up before a mayoral election, though, is happenstance.
It's not like right. I mean, these are totally legitimate questions. I'm just saying that they're going to become very bound up into some of these other issues about management.
Well,
there has always been a concern. There's been a running concern. These situations. The Cassandra Wade case is tragic. And one could fairly say, when you kind of look at the totality of what was going on there, is that the chief's fault or whatever? If there were policies and those two officers didn't follow those policies, then that's on those two officers, one would say. But some of these other questions, obviously questions about the chief's involvement in some contracts are very much related to the chief's performance. And we've seen over the years, some, concerns about some of the promotions that the mayor has made, almost from the very outset. I can recall just within a year of him taking office, there was some major concerns about was political pressure being used within the police bureau to sort of reward friends and punish enemies. So this has kind of been a running motif, regrettably, for the Ravenstall administration. And yeah, I mean, I think certainly you're going to hear some questions raised about it in the days to come.
Okay.
Not just from reporters, but also from other politicians.
Is there you have no inside information about what this? I mean, so one person has already been sentenced in regard to the contract.
Yeah, that was the city employee
who was judged to be took the money, right?
Yes.
Well, how would Chief Harper be involved in that? I guess that's what the grand jury's. I mean, what it is that the businessman who got the contract that's in question here is a guy, Arthur Bedway. Mr. Bedway and Chief Harper are known to be friends. Chief Harper's wife worked for... They keep saying former friends. So there's apparently been some sort of distancing. The chief's wife worked for one of Mr. Bedway's firms, although she since left that company, which the chief has said was precisely to address those concerns. There have been some stories in the Post-Gazette in the past year or two about how there's been friction between on-duty city police officers and some private guards, and some of that kind of gets into because some of the guards work for a company owned by Mr. Bedway and so on and so forth. So there's a wide range of things going on here. Whether the chief has said he had nothing to do with issuing this contract, as we said, he's sort of distanced himself. So, and this is only an investigation. We should always be. Oh no, I know this, but he has not been charged. People are looking, and they should be, because I just think the circumstances here it raises questions, and the diligence of the law should be that people should try to answer those questions. Do you recall not too long ago a just over-the-top sputtering editorial in the Post-Gazette aimed at the chief in regard to the way he handled some questions that were posed to him
I can tell you quite a bit about this.
Well, okay. So what the heck was that about?
So what happened was, and this is the Cassandra Wade shooting, what happened was two Post-Gazette reporters, Liz Navratil and Jonathan Silver, got word, essentially, that the police had been called. Remember, this was first reported. The Cassandra Wade shooting was first reported as she was the first death
of the year
2013. And then what transpired is it developed that two police officers had been there the day before on New Year's Eve, and the Post-Gazette got wind of this. I'm not sure how they did it, but they got wind of it. The Bureau of Police typically requests that reporters, request is probably too soft a word, typically requires that reporters send questions in writing via email. That's how Diane Richard, the police spokesperson, tends to handle that stuff. John Silver...
So in other words, she doesn't want you stopping by and asking what?
Or calling up. Like, if you'll call her up for... very often she'll say, can you put the questions in writing? And I can understand why that might be good for her. She can forward it to the relevant people. And I should say that Ms. Richard has typically been very helpful with us.
Okay.
So I want to put that out there. But anyway, what happened was John Silver and Liz Navratil sent their questions, and there were a whole slew of questions. They were very detailed questions, because this is the thing. When you're sending questions by email, so one reason reporters don't like to do it. It's hard to do a follow-up. So you really have to lay out what you know. So there were questions there like, did Mr. Brown, who was the person believed to have shot her, did he give a note to police during the standoff, and did that note say something to the effect of, these are very specific questions. What the Bureau did is something I've actually never seen done, which is the Bureau issued a statement that was kind of a boilerplate statement. This matter isn't under investigation. We can't comment. But then what it did was it attached all of the Post-Gazette's questions to the press release, which it then sent out to every reporter in town, including those of us here at City Paper, and also to all of the police brass who are typically CC'd on press releases.
So thus giving all the work that these two reporters had done to every other...
I believe, right, exactly. And because of the way those questions looked, it was pretty easy to reconstruct what was going on there.
Right.
So what that allowed, say, the Tribune Review to do, and I believe the Trib actually, although this is the Post-Gazette story, the Tribune Review got it up online first. What that allowed the Tribune Review to do is say, police are investigating a matter in which da-da-da-da-da, and we're able... And then because they knew the questions being asked, they themselves were able to turn around and ask some of those questions to their sources and flesh it out.
Okay, so
very often in journalism, as you know, it's knowing what question to ask.
Right. And being first is real important to journalists too.
Right.
But so that's what the sputtering.
They were outraged, and I've talked to.
Do you understand their outrage?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a and the thing that makes it.
Why was it done?
Why was it done? I mean, the most obvious answer is, well, it was a way to punish the Post-Gazette for having the impertinence to ask these questions.
Well,
but
what
on the
do
other
you
hand,
mean? That's what they
now
do.
what you've done, is you've helped publicize that story, because there may have been other reporters, including, say, for example, myself. Obviously we didn't do a story on it because we were, it had already been reported by the time we come out. But, I didn't know that there was a note. I might not have, if I was interested in pursuing this, I might not have known that. So did he throw out a note or whatever? So it's sort of an odd thing. And of course, what you've really done is antagonize the hell out of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And if anybody thinks that's going to put John Silver off the trail, they don't know John Silver. So it's a really odd thing that
then and I saw that some head of public relations society internationally said what they did. What I mean, just that it was an outrageous thing for them to do.
That's because the Post-Gazette's editor asked them for an opinion. Yeah. David Shribman called them up and said, "What do you make of this?" And what they said is, "Well, it's not exactly unethical. It's a really bad idea," because they don't have a standard for.
Okay, well, and they'd never done anything like that before.
Not to my knowledge.
It's so bizarre. So that's coming out of the police
and it's not just coming out of the department, it's coming from Harper.
Okay.
Because she was very careful, and I have a feeling she did this. That is just my speculation. Because she knew that people were just going to be like, Diane, what the hell? She was, every time she answered a question about it, including questions I asked her, this was per the direction of Chief Harper. Per the direction of Chief Harper. Every single answer.
So he seems like he's a little stressed out, perhaps.
Yeah, he might be.
He might be.
Might be. But these are very important questions, and I do hope they come up in this political debate. I'll be shocked and disappointed in this city if they don't, because public safety is elemental to what this city does, and there's just been this string now of incidents, some serious, some not so serious, some tragic, as the Cassandra Wade.
Okay, help me here. There's a traffic incident in Homestead. I'm talking about the chase now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And these cops in Homestead start chasing the guy who doesn't stop. This comes into Pittsburgh territory.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh knows they're coming this way. I thought there was an order given for Pittsburgh not to engage in the chase. Are you aware of that?
In this particular chase?
Yeah.
No, I think there was. I think, and I haven't obsessed over this issue quite the same way I have Cassandra Wade, maybe, but my sense was there's always this sort of thing of, at what point do you abandon a chase precisely to prevent some dipshit from running over somebody?
Well, and also there's a thing about when do you even begin a chase, because a chase in and of itself becomes a public health
exactly.
It endangers the public.
I don't know that there was an order per se.
If somebody doesn't stop at a stop sign, I don't think that's a reason for a chase.
Yeah,
right?
I could be wrong about this. So
okay,
people
and I could too.
But my what I recall is not that there was an order per se, but that there were police officers who did say they basically dropped back. In fairness to the officers who were actually on foot in the Strip District, you do have a car barreling along. This is a little before 2 a.m. The streets are full of drunken people. these cars, even the car that was shot accidentally, apparently was hit by the car that was actually doing this. And the officer saw a Buick coming at him, knew it was a Buick, and, fired. And it might have been almost a muscle, reflex almost. So it was a very chaotic situation.
But when cops start shooting with lots of people on the street, innocent people die often. We are so lucky that
somebody was apparently grazed, I think was.
I think the one in the car.
Well, no, I meant a bystander.
A bystander was great.
Yeah.
Grazed. I mean, those cops are darn lucky. Yeah. It seems to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. What's more dangerous, cops shooting all over the place or the car barreling down the street?
Yeah, I don't know.
Also, I heard, and I don't know if this is true either, that one of the police that was shooting was also one of the police that responded to the Cassandra Wade.
Oh, I did not hear that.
Now, that is able to be checked out, but I do believe. He had a very busy week, that guy.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. You're rather circumspect.
Well, I have to be.
What? Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean?
One's working on various things and stuff like that. So.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh gosh. You ask a reporter on the show, and they give you all this mysterious stuff. He's working. Okay. We'll drop it, I guess. So those are stories we should be...
Maybe we'll see.
God. Did you watch the inauguration?
I was working.
Well, you don't have a thing you can...
No, I did. I watched it after the fact, yeah. And my wife watched it live with our kid, who now believes our president is Mama.
Oh, Mama.
Who's the president? Oh, Mama.
Yeah. Oh, Mama.
Yeah. So no, I did watch it, and I did watch portions of it and read a transcript of it, and I thought it was great.
Great speech.
And it occurred to me this morning, that's probably the last big speech he'll give. In that, I mean, in a way, I kind of hope so. Like when you think about the sort of... Well,
you don't know that.
Yeah, you don't, obviously, because any terrible thing could happen. But that,
it's bigger than a State of the Union. It's bigger than whatever. But no, you don't know.
Yeah.
Hey.
And it was, that speech we've longed to hear.
Yeah.
Just putting gay rights up there right alongside.
Well, he just...
Civil rights.
It was a truly liberal... it was a liberal president speaking liberal...
Yeah.
Liberal what? Liberal...
I mean, it was just. I think what I appreciated most about it was he did something that I'm amazed. You and I have talked about this, and that I'm amazed Democrats don't do more often, which is just a full-throated, unapologetic.
That's right.
Effort not just to assert those values, but to connect those values with the essential, fundamental values of this
country.
To tie them back to, because I'm so tired of Republicans being able to claim this sort of, original Constitution, or that they're the only ones who know what George Washington and Tom Jefferson and everybody else actually believed or meant or thought, and it's more it's past time that we start claiming back our portion of that legacy.
Indeed, and I just thought it was wonderful, wonderful, and I like the poet. Did you see the poet?
I did not see
the poet's worth seeing. And did you see Bill Clinton craning his neck to catch every time a woman got up there? Did you see that?
I saw photos of it. I don't know.
Oh, what a randy old coot. Good. I love him. Okay. Okay, and yesterday I was wondering, you didn't see it, but I'll tell you that when they announced the president, when he came down the steps and took his seat, it was President Barack H. Obama. And I thought,
awesome.
How odd, though. But they've never used Barack H. Obama. And then more than once I heard Barack H. Obama. And then the oath of office was delivered by Chief Justice Roberts.
Yeah.
And the Chief Justice said, do you, Barack Hussein Obama, or whatever, I, Barack Hussein Obama, and the President said, I, Barack Hussein Obama. And then the question was asked yesterday, well what, wait a minute. Why did the Chief Justice have to say Hussein? Because when you're doing the the oath, you got to have the absolute name.
Right.
And we decided that must be it. But someone...
I don't think that's true.
No, it's not. Tom said... I think Roberts using the president's full middle name was not about formality because Biden's initial was used and not his full name when he was doing the oath. So Tom thinks Roberts was getting
what makes this weird is am I remembering incorrectly when I say that the first inauguration he did use his name pretty much throughout? I don't recall it being a thing. The first time around, I recall.
Hussein was
part
of it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But that's why
it's
H
so weird.
Was
yes,
weird.
The H is weird to me more than the other one is.
Where did that come from?
And there was as you can probably imagine, there were plenty of conservatives on Twitter who were making sport of this and suggesting
of the Hussein.
That he was dropping it. Again as part of the effort.
Oh, really?
To further the Islamist agenda or whatever, which is just like.
Oh dear God.
Which makes no sense in its own right. If you were ever gonna drop it for political purposes, it would be before the re-election or before the first election. So it seems completely counterintuitive that now that he doesn't have to run for anything ever again in his life, he would now drop the middle name.
Wow.
So I don't know. Has anybody reported on what was going on there?
No. I haven't seen anything. These are important questions that I want answered, and I haven't seen it anywhere. Anyway. It was
Lynn Cullen wants answers.
I do. And I also don't want the president walking down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Because you're worried he'll get picked off or something?
Yeah, I am. I want that stopped immediately.
Well, he's probably not out there now.
I certainly hope not.
I don't even want to be out there now.
And, okay. Well, enough of that. What? Oh, it's time to take a break. You keep me right on schedule.
Ausgezeichnet.
Mostly I like the way the Brits speak our supposed shared tongue, but the word schedule, I think we got that one right.
Yeah. No
Don't
question.
you?
No.
Okay,
Come on.
Right. Schedule. Well,
it's not a shul. You don't go to a shul when you're a kid, right? Unless it's
although I was behind a yellow vanish thing the other day. And it said stool bus. And I thought, what? Stool bus? And sure. And, in the right kind of lettering. And it turns out, yes, it was a plumber. It was Isn't that cute? Isn't that clever? A stool bus.
I'm not.
No?
I just don't know if that's a smart
I thought it was a little out there, too, but it was clever,
yeah,
I thought. And in fact, here I am 2 days later talking about it. I didn't know if with a stool bus, if they stopped, did I have to stop or could I go around them?
You just blew my perfect 20 minutes.
All right, okay, we're on. We got to take a break.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Lynn Cullen Live and Panera Bread celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. became the third black, 12th American, and the youngest person ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize. It was the dramatic climax of a year that had witnessed the passage of a far-reaching civil rights bill, devastating riots in the northern ghettos, and the tragic murder of 3 civil rights workers in Mississippi. From the pulpit, King donated the entire $54,000 Nobel Prize to the black movement. Overnight, King became an international leader, a symbol of world peace. He knew that if the Nobel Prize was to mean anything, he must commit himself more than ever to attain the goals of the black movement through peace.
Countdown to King, brought to you by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health, and Lynn Cullen Live.
Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for Mozart, Joy Ike, Mark Eddy, Black Veil Brides, and News of the Weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Today, My Care Navigator forwarded my medical records and freed my mind for other things.
Introducing My Care Navigator, your 24/7 healthcare co-pilot, new from Highmark.
My Care Navigator found me the ideal specialist. Less work for me.
My Care Navigator makes it easier to navigate the system. Call 1-888-BLUE-428 to connect with yours today. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield is an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
All right, we have returned. Still pretty much on schedule. Did you hear about the great the cheese debacle in
Nope.
in Norway?
No, I have not heard about a cheese debacle anywhere.
In the tunnel.
No, did like a truck fall over or something?
A truck loaded with, let me see how many tons, 27 tons of what is described as flaming brown cheese.
I will say, I have been warned that too much cheese can block your arteries. Get it off! Block your arteries! Get it?
Well, this is true, because this artery is blocked.
Exactly.
Well, first of all...
Was the cheese actually on fire?
Yes, the cheese caught fire.
Oh, he wasn't driving along with flaming cheese by him.
He's
Okay.
driving, and all of a sudden his load, like, sort of spontaneously... to beat you two, spontaneously combusts. And there's a reason.
Wait, so the cheese caught fire and then he wrecked, or he wrecked and the cheese caught fire?
Look, here.
Okay.
The kind of cheese is made from whey
Yeah.
and contains up to 30% fat.
Yeah.
So someone on the scene said this high concentration of fat and sugar is like petrol if it gets hot enough. So it was this, who knows what started the conflagration, but 27 tons of flaming brown cheese, a Norwegian delicacy. Okay, now this happened in a most unpropitious place, which was a 2-mile tunnel.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the flaming cheese obviously shut the tunnel down.
The flaming cheese.
The flaming cheese, listen to this.
It's one of the less successful superheroes, I think, of the DC era. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Get this. The cheese caught fire on Thursday when the truck was in the tunnel. They didn't extinguish the flaming brown cheese until, I'm going to get this, Monday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that cheese was on fire. Is that amazing?
Is that because they just needed the time to get all the fondue forks together?
All right, very funny.
Like, wow. You probably had to use special chemicals, right?
I guess so. You needed chemists on the scene. How do we deal with this? It was the first time the cheese had caught fire on Norwegian roads.
Now, who keeps that statistic?
Well,
somebody, that's a pretty bold statement right there. In the history of Norway and the history of cheese, there has never before been a time when cheese caught fire.
As far as anybody knew.
I'm just saying.
All right.
All it takes is one case.
Okay, and here's the thing. So it took them 5 days to get the cheese, under control.
Right.
And then it says the tunnel will be closed for at least another week.
To clean it up.
Can you imagine? First of all, you know what burnt cheese smells like.
Yeah.
Ah, man.
Yeah.
Jeez, 27 tons of flaming brown cheese. That's my favorite story of the day. I don't know why you're not on top of some of these big stories.
Yeah, I don't either.
Jeez. I got that in the New York Times.
Yeah, I could see it was this big.
Yeah, it was a little tiny thing. It's the tiny ones that are always the best stories. Like this one. I got another one.
Okay.
When you think of Nepal,
yep.
Do you think of a progressive country?
I mean, not particularly, I guess.
Me either.
But they got like the, Dalai Lama and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't think of it as being...
No, not on the cutting edge of...
No. Well...
I was playing straight man because I knew it would be something that was going to blow my mind.
The Nepalese government will begin issuing citizen certificates. Apparently, you have to have it's a card. You have to.
Okay.
And on the citizen certificates, obviously, your name, where you come from, male or female,
right,
height, weight, who knows what. I don't know if they go all that way. But anyway, they're going to have a third category for people who do not wish to be identified as male or female. Nepal!
Right.
Well, isn't that somewhat startling?
Yeah.
They're calling it...
I'm a Buddhist. I don't believe in distinctions.
They said third gender. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
And that... but I mean, that's... If you're gay, you would still say I'm a man or a woman.
Yes, but...
So who would say I'm neither? A hermaphrodite?
Yeah, or people who are...
What?
I don't know, people who are in transition.
Things are getting so complicated now, I can't keep track. But even if you were transgender...
You would still identify
Wouldn't you
by
identify?
gender?
One of the reasons you are transgender is you want to identify with one or the other.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't get it. And this, by the way, it's the Supreme Court of Nepal that ruled in 6 years ago that the government should, in fact, issue these third gender citizen certificates, but the Nepalese government operates sort of like a lot of governments do, and it took them 5-6 years to get this thing up and running.
Right.
Third gender. Nepal, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's grim.
What?
I don't mind. I don't mind the United States being less progressive than like France or whatever, but it seems to me we ought to be able to hold our own.
We're less progressive in so many ways than like countries you would never think we were less progressive than. I mean, in a lot of ways. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. No,
so Roe v. Wade yesterday, the big anniversary, and it's fascinating how the anti-abortion people have really won a lot. It depends on where you live in this country whether you can have an abortion.
Yes.
A safe and legal abortion, because there are, how many states? Is it 5 states where there is only one abortion clinic in the entire state? And these are big states. This is like North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, whatever.
Mississippi.
So it doesn't give you, especially for a poor person who maybe doesn't have transportation. And then they have, on top of that, they have these laws that maybe a woman who needs an abortion has to travel and be counseled and have probes stuck up her and listen to hemming and hawing about, how if you have an abortion, you're going to get cancer and all this kind of crapola mandated by the states. And then she can't get the abortion right then. She has to think about it for 2 days, go back home, come back. Well, abortion's not available in that situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can you have this as a legal thing and the states can manage?
Yeah, it's because of Planned Parenthood versus Casey. That came from Pennsylvania. All of what you're seeing now got its roots here in Pennsylvania with Robert Casey, the elder. Remind
us of the.
This was Bob Casey, the governor, not the current senator. His father basically had a series of restrictions. He was a pro-lifer, as people know, and under his watch, the government passed a series of restrictions to abortion. I can't remember which ones were his bill, which came later. I know one was tossed out, and that was spousal notification. But things like a minor would have to notify her parents. And what the Supreme Court eventually ruled was, it's this classic kind of,
that a state could, in fact...
You can't, as long as you can tie these restrictions to a reasonable state interest, you can impose, while the right to abortion remained, you can legislate certain restrictions on it or certain requirements. And so what has been happening since then is states are basically, Republicans, I should say, in these states are basically trying everything they can as you say, inconvenience to
downright
legislate out of
harassment,
existence. Yes, yeah, it's a legislative harassment, and the transvaginal bill is a good example. The transvaginal ultrasound is a good example. What happened in Pennsylvania last year is a good example when Corbett and the legislature passed these rules that were nominally about patient safety, but just had things about elevator dimensions, which have nothing to do.
No,
with
but it
how
had to do with
forcing
some clinics to close
or just inconveniencing them. It is harassment by legislation.
Yes.
And it's sooner or later. One would have to think like at some point there's going to be some bridge, and I would suspect maybe it comes in Mississippi, where finally a court just says, you know what, the sum total of what you're doing is just a bridge too far, and you have basically effectively done a backdoor. Which you can't do that. I mean,
if something is a legal medical procedure and yet you cannot get it,
right,
then something's wrong.
It's always striking, isn't it, how Republicans are usually against government overregulation.
Oh yeah,
and yet it happens here. I mean, the best example of this, and I'll give the perfect example to me. I wrote a column about this a year or two back. Governor Corbett, the first thing Governor Corbett did was, as governor, was sign a bill turning over. There had been some requirements that new homes were going to have to be built with sprinklers installed in the home, new housing construction, actual sprinkler system. And Governor Corbett said, this is exact, and all the legislators backed it, this is the kind of government regulation that's just too much government regulation, blah, 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 blah. Now, he did this just a few weeks after there had been a tragic fire that killed 6 people out in the eastern part of the state, and 4 or 5 of them were children. So you know that children sometimes die in housing fires, just as children after they had been born were killed in that clinic in Philadelphia, which is, what the nominal pretext for all these rules was. There, government regulation is a perfectly acceptable response to a tragic state of affairs. But hey, when it comes to house sprinklers, that could save lives of adults, children, and every house pets, whatever. Then it's too much. We can't do it. But we can hassle these women every chance we get because fundamentally we don't trust them. We want to restrict them, and that's what it's about.
This is in the ultrasound bill that was passed here?
No, it was not.
It was not, but this is the one that Corbett said, hey, look, if you don't want to look, you turn your head.
Right. You can always close your eyes. And then funnily enough, a few weeks after that, he came to the University of Pittsburgh to give an appearance, and the students were told they couldn't hold up signs during the thing. And my thing was, what's the problem? Corbett can just close his eyes.
God.
So that's who your governor is a guy who thinks it's fine to force this stuff into women's faces, and yet he himself can't.
And yet, a new poll came out that said that the majority of Americans support abortion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, this is like gun control.
So why? So how do these minorities, and they're always on the right, manage to prevail when because they're more determined than the majority?
I think that's part of it, and I also think too that's the other advantage of their kind of incremental approach. Any one little regulation. I mean, you look at what happened in Mississippi. The last thing they did was, I can't even remember, it had something to do with are you credentialed by a local hospital or something like that.
Right.
Well, that's a really hard thing to get people fired up about, maybe especially in Mississippi, I don't know. But, there are these little tiny things, any one of which are just a little hard to, get that worked up about. But when you take them all together, and the people who are crazy about the pro-life position are far more committed to it than much of that 60%.
Absolutely. Oh, without a doubt.
Who are for abortion rights. So it's the same as with gun control.
But there will eventually be pushback when these younger Americans who are, thank God, beginning to pull this country back to a more moderate position, when they find themselves unable to have access, and when it becomes real to them, right?
You hope so. You hope so. I mean, you could kind of already see some of this. You are seeing some Republicans, at least, and it's partly because of the idiotic rape comments of some of their candidates last year. But I think there is a sort of dawning sense, and this is why Tony Perkins of the Family Research Center,
he sort of said everything I
did
hear about.
I've failed.
He said we've been defeated.
Yeah. So let us not counsel too much despair when we see that stuff going on. So, I think you're probably already seeing it. It's just the classic thing. They have pushed and they have pushed and they have pushed. And we on our side, partly because of who our political leaders have always been sort of willing to compromise. Because there hasn't been pushback. But sooner or later, we reach these tipping points where people are just like, I've heard
can't
enough.
Do this anymore. Yeah. Right. And we really seem to be getting there in a lot of instances.
And I think that's part of the thing that for me about Obama's speech.
Yeah. He finally didn't pull back.
Right.
He just stood.
4 years we did this with you guys. For 4 years we've seen you play out your dysfunction on the national stage, and now finally, and we'll see how long it lasts. But finally, the president just said, "You know what? This is the ground I stand on."
Yep, and it was
great,
gratifying. And I have to tell you, when those two were walking down Pennsylvania Avenue, the Wall Street Journal, of all places, had the best picture on their front page yesterday of the two of them walking and smiling and looking so gorgeous. They looked like the most gorgeous young couple. And to think that that's our president or first lady. They look great.
I didn't like her hair.
Most people are having trouble with the hair. You don't like the bang.
Now we're getting to the issues. Yeah, I'm just
You'll get used to it. I wonder if he likes the hair. He probably doesn't either.
He's a compromiser. He'll look at all the crap he's taken from John Boehner. If for somebody he actually cares about, he'll find a way to like the hair.
So, by the way, Tracy, our former producer, has written and said, "The Flaming Cheese." That would be such a great band name.
Some Flaming Cheese,
wouldn't it?
It would not be bad.
The Flaming Cheese, great band name. And hello to all of you. Yeah. Hi, Tracy. Okay. Guess what, Potter?
On the 20s.
On the 20s. I'm taking another break. We'll be right back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on meals from your favorite local restaurants, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 20% on gift cards to Panera Bread. Supplies are limited. Bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. Bergbargains.com.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a pep talk that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You can improve your future. Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up. Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and for free classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education, brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Oh, yeah.
Are we going?
Yeah, we're on right now.
And when I'm hacking and coughing like that?
Yes, people heard that.
Shit.
No, now they'll just appreciate your dedication.
I hack in their ears all the time. Why is that? If I had an afternoon show, it wouldn't happen. This happens. This is my morning voice. It's awful. Why, it's simply awful.
We could change the show to the afternoon if you wanted.
No, I like it in the morning. You know why? Because it gets me out of bed.
Oh, I see. Oh, so if we did it in the afternoon, you'd still sound like this. It would just be too.
That might be true. Yeah, I'll stay in bed till noon. That's true. And when I did work, like when I did the late news, when I was an anchor person, you get on an entirely different schedule because after you do a show, you can't go home and go to sleep.
Right.
So you go to sleep around 2:30, 3 in the morning, and then you get up and, geez, It's awful. You're totally out of whack with everybody else. Yep. Mm-hmm. You have nothing to say.
No, I'm just, yeah.
You think of things. I can tell when
I do, and then
you think of things, and then you think
to pass them on, let them go down the stream of time.
Let it go. Okay, so there was this other big headline in the paper today about watch out, nonprofits. The county's coming after you. We want you to prove that those properties you have are in fact being used for charitable. You got to believe a whole hunk of them aren't, right?
They'll find a way.
They'll find a way not to pay their taxes.
They'll find a way to make it all look fine.
And furlough's coming after these guys too. There's all these efforts, and I feel like somehow maybe there's more of a shot that we can get somewhere. No,
I don't think the furlough bill is much of a thing. Senator Furlow has been bringing this stuff up for a long time. He's probably about as close to a lame duck as you can get, and I just don't see that moving in the way he wants it to go. But yeah, so Fitzgerald is calling for that. You got to remember too, at the city level, the city has convened a sort of task force, and they've been unlike a lot of task force, this one may actually produce something because it was required by the city's financial overseers to really look at what kinds of revenue generating potential is there from these nonprofits. I think it's just with every passing month it gets to be just a tougher and tougher sell for some of these big ones. The obvious example being UPMC. To make this case. Make this case that they are purely in a charitable mode, and that's all that they do.
There are other cities that have managed to get I don't know if it's a fair share, but a more reasonable
a larger share. Yeah,
like Boston, I believe.
Yeah, Boston is probably the best example. There's a piece today in the Post-Gazette by a guy who sort of the nonprofits have their own little group now, where they talk about the rest of it. There's this sort of opinion piece, which is just hey, we don't think we should, we're certainly willing to have these discussions, which is just
screw them.
Yeah, where we'll beat you over the head behind closed doors with a sledgehammer. But we do so much, we give so much to the city, and that's why there's a nonprofit exemption, because nonprofits do things that governments can't do themselves, which is just I do things that government doesn't really do. So nobody
gives me a break. Yeah, how come that is?
Yeah, so there's certainly there was a Supreme Court decision last year which really introduced a state Supreme Court decision which really introduced some uncertainty. So yeah, I think it's, if you had to bet, I would bet that nothing's going to happen simply because nothing ever has. But yeah, when you really look at it, some stuff does seem to be lining up, and I think the big question is, and it's been raised by a bunch of people, when you know that UPMC, for example, is the largest property holder in Allegheny County, and you know that they overpay for properties, and you know that they buy these places sometimes purely on spec,
right?
For a use that may or may not materialize 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah,
you really do start to wonder.
You think, excuse me, and what does this have to do with charity?
Oh, right.
What? Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. When we saw this with the Highmark UPMC battle. You're a purely public charity, which sounds great, but you basically act like everyone else. That's you act as vicious as even City Paper has. We put somebody out of business. So it's, what's the difference really? If that's the goal, if that's the way you're playing the rules.
City Paper was a rapacious capitalist.
No, there was a competing alternative weekly,
and you prevailed.
And we acquired them. I don't know that, to be honest with you, I don't know that they would have been in business much longer if we hadn't done anything. I've seen the books.
So in other words, you were white knights. You were not rapacious capitalists. No. You were, I don't know.
That was good. You just called me on some serious bullshit. That was good. I appreciate you doing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I still hold to that position, but I totally realize it sounded like total corporate speak, and I appreciate I appreciate you making me look like a complete corporate ponce.
Hey, speaking of this corporate, I saw a little piece the other day, and I did mention it on the air. There's a guy who's got a court case. He's now appealing a decision that didn't go his way, where he's been riding the California freeways in the...
Yes.
You saw that in the HOV lane?
Yes.
With corporate...
Papers
incorporation papers on the seat.
because
love that. Because corporations are people.
Yeah, that case won't go anywhere.
No, it won't, but you have to give him credit.
I think it's funny, but apparently he's been driving around for years just waiting to get pulled over, which sort of suggests something interesting about how that's policed. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I get what he's saying, but you may as well then just take a stack of people's birth certificates and say you're carrying a busload of folks.
Well, that's true,
right.
too.
I mean, because papers.
Better to do what I did when we first got an HOV lane here. Mm-hmm. I was a intrepid reporter at the time, and you had to have 2 people to get on, and I was looking for you had to have 3, I think, originally.
Right.
It was 3.
The sunny, optimistic days of the 1980s.
Right, that's right. You couldn't get on the HOV lane unless there were 3 people in the car.
Right.
So I tried to figure out ways to get around it, and I came up with, I thought, wonderful ones, and I cataloged my efforts. I came down here to Liberty Avenue, and there was like a porn shop. There were a lot of porn shops here. Remember that?
A sex doll?
Yeah, I got a sex doll. And I'd never seen a sex doll up close. Gee, God almighty. So
Did you have the camera for your reaction shot?
Yeah, I don't remember. Oh, God. I blew her up.
Somebody needs to find this on YouTube.
Right. Shared some of my clothes with her.
Right.
And I actually put her in the back seat. Put her in the back.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. So
nobody puts baby in the corner.
Who did I put in the passenger seat? It took me a while to find this one. An Afghan.
Like a rug?
Okay, you can go for a rug, you can go for somebody from Afghanistan, or you can go for a dog.
Yeah.
It was the dog. Because if you know what an Afghan looks like,
right.
They are tall and thin, and if you see an Afghan from the back, they look like a gorgeous statuesque woman with gorgeous long hair.
You don't have to tell me I made a mistake in a bar once.
Yeah, exactly. So I put the Afghan in the passenger seat. I had the porn doll in the back. We sailed on that HOV lane.
No trouble.
And up and down and up and down. I was trying to get stopped, too.
Right.
I did not get stopped.
I think it was the show Curb Your Enthusiasm where the guy, he's trying to get to the Lakers game on time, and the only way to do that is because the traffic's all snarled up is to use the HOV lane, so he hires a prostitute. He gets, off the street just to ride in the car with him, and he pays her, the whole thing, just so he has a second person in the car just to get to the game on time.
Listen, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah.
Dorothea says, sorry to be glasses half empty here, but most any inaugural speech absolutely does nothing for me. My father would always say, actions speak louder than words. And to me, an inaugural speech is just words. I love what the president said, but I don't see any of that translating into actions with this Congress. I think far too much emphasis is placed on this speech, and each speech is always compared to Kennedy, and there's never been a quote to rival. That's not what it is.
Yeah, although I've always been unimpressed by that quote.
Because he ripped it off.
Oh, did he? I didn't even know. I just thought, what the hell does that? I mean, what does that? Yeah, go march in line. That's what that quote says to me.
I think it says, go into the Peace Corps.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Stop thinking government's going to give you everything, and what can you do for us? It's a call to communal.
I guess.
What? Honest to Pete. It was a good line.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay, so thanks, Dorothea, for bumming us all out.
No, I hear that, but on the other hand, just to take the example of the gay rights part, I think that's big.
Crying.
That's big. That to me is big. And sometimes words are performative. Sometimes words are actions.
Exactly. I was thinking that one line or 2 lines. There was actually 2 mentions of it, of gay rights. The fact that a president in an inaugural speech says that so matter-of-factly, when the Supreme Court's sitting right there, and the Supreme Court's taken up the issue.
I was about to say, yep.
Don't tell me that was Obama using the bully pulpit. He was telling Roberts and Scalia and all the others sitting there, hey guys, the country, we have moved.
Yeah.
And I'm stating it here because we all know that's true. And it makes, I don't care, but I think that the president, I was thinking about this last night. He might have just moved that opinion. It's possible.
It's possible, and I mean, I think that opinion. I don't know to what extent, but I think you're going to see some progress. Is the one area where I'm hopeful from the Supreme Court, largely because Kennedy, I expect to join with the more liberal members. Yeah, so I think you will. And I think that's the point. In a way, all the Supreme Court is words, right? But they're words that have power because we believe in them and because we give the court. That kind of deference. And so his words there, I think words can change the context in which we act. And in that sense, they are actions, I think, sometimes in certain situations. I agree that most of the time a speech where you talk, I mean, the better, I think the concern I have that's much like your correspondent is on climate change. He did mention it.
Yeah, but
he did talk about it. It was a very brief, like paragraph long message.
But he also, there was a derisive thing about,
not believing in it. But again, believing in it. Fine. So you're derisive. It pisses off the Tea Party people, and I'm for that. I'm not against doing that by any stretch. But if that's a case where if it's not followed up by actions, then I don't really care that much. They were nice words, but I totally agree with Dorothea there that if the action will speak louder.
Well, but what Dorothy also said is he can talk as much as he wants. He's got this friggin' Congress.
Yeah.
And the friggin' court.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. He's also got an EPA. Who he's in charge of for the next 4 years, thank God. So he's not totally
well, pity the poor person he nominates for that
job.
Position.
Yeah.
And see if they get through.
Yeah, that will not be easy.
No. So, whatever. So, when I left home coming down here, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who's pretty much out, was testifying before the Congress in regard to Benghazi.
Is that how she says it?
No.
Oh,
that's how I say it. I'm from Wisconsin.
Okay. I just never know when you're going to do that.
I don't know. It just comes. I don't know why that is that I do that.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So do we finally get to the bottom of it?
Oh, yeah. She can handle that better than anybody.
That to me is just, the most... I'm just baffled by the way that issue. They just keep clinging to that issue. How they keep clinging to it. It didn't even really blow up. It's just... They were looking to inflate something.
So one thing Republicans can do better than just about anybody is make mountains out of molehills.
Yeah.
They're just ingenious.
Yeah. It's imagine if what happened during Ronald Reagan's days in Beirut, the deaths of 241 Marines had happened. Imagine if that happened under Barack Obama's watch. Imagine these guys, they would be outright calling for impeachment. You look at these guys and they're saying things like, biggest scandal since Watergate, bigger than Watergate, this is a huge cover-up, blah, 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 blah. And it's just...
What are you talking
about? The worst case thing I've heard. It's just, it is amazing. And really it's a testament to him and to this administration that there hasn't been anything bigger than that.
Yeah, exactly. This has been one of the cleanest administrations ever. There really hasn't been any scandal.
Well, that's just because you and I are in the liberal media. Only Fox News is willing to tell us the real truth.
So I got...
Remember that woman who said something on a selectively edited videotape? Oh, you just like to forget about that one.
Jeez. Dear Lord.
They just have set up their entire little...
So, but Republicans, even when they're wounded, as they are, and I forgot which pundit said, nothing is more dangerous than a wounded animal.
Right.
Okay, so the Republicans are wounded now, and they're sort of fighting amongst themselves, and they're not sure where to go, and blah, 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 blah. But you do have to give them, never underestimate them, because even in a minority position, as they are, I think, now in the country, they, from sheer tenacity and self-righteous meanness, will, in fact, continue indefatigably to take perfectly legal rights away from people they want to take them from, the abortion situation, and create mountains out of molehills because they're good at it, and manage to turn the national conversation and where we're paying attention. They'll manage with their friends in the media who are so concerned about being balanced, right, to still make off with a lot of our attention.
Yeah.
When they're contributing absolutely nothing. Nothing.
That's the amazing thing about it. It's just, yeah. You might be seeing some signs of fatigue.
I think we are.
We'll see. I mean, I think actually what they're doing now, with this debt ceiling thing is actually
smart on their
smart. Yeah, if they do it.
First smart thing they've done in
if they actually do it. I mean, I don't know. The last I heard was there was some restiveness in the Republicans.
House.
Some of those crazy people who just want to shoot the damn hostage no matter what because it makes them feel better about themselves, I guess. So, who knows? It would be smarter for them to wait and then really have it out in a conventional budget thing, and then they get to score all their political points without looking like people who are literally engaged in an effort to undermine the entire United States economy.
I read a piece today about the governor of Maine, this total idiot. He's the one who came in and insisted that, in the Department of Labor, that murals be taken down.
But they put that mural back up, apparently.
Yeah, no, I don't think in the Department of Labor. I think they put it up someplace else. Someone's garage. No, I think it was put up back. But this guy is just a stark raving Tea Party lunatic.
Right.
And there was some piece today about Maine being the worst. I mean, there's no growth in that state, and all that governor does is bitch and moan about the state, which hardly is conducive to people feeling better about it. And he has refused, get this, to talk to the Democrats.
Right.
He will not. You can't even. He won't answer the phone. He won't. What kind of insanity is this? He's the governor of a state.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is these guys get elected hating government, and then people somehow expect them to govern. It's just like, what did you expect? I assume it's not like I followed the Maine gubernatorial campaign, but I assume that he basically just campaigned as some Tea Party outside guy who had no interest in compromise. So why is anybody surprised? I feel like part of the function is for most of my life anyway, it's 20, 30 years. These guys have been running on this, we hate government thing, but nobody really ever believed them. Everybody sort of understood it to be kind of a pose. And then it turned out all of a sudden that this new crop of guys actually means all that stuff. And people are just completely amazed by it. So,
look I got an email from Reince Priebus.
Yeah. The head of the RNC.
He wants to hear from me.
I'll bet he does.
He wants to hear from me. What
the
do you
insight
think
of dedicated volunteers and activists like you will be crucial to the project and to the Republican Party's success.
Give him some ideas then. What do you think he wants to know from me? What do you think the party must do better? Where do we go in the future? This is your chance to make your voice heard.
You should totally monkey wrench this.
Oh yeah, okay, I will.
You should be like, we need to not be so easy on these Latino immigrants.
Explore our new website, growthopportunityproject.com. I am willing to bet that. Thank you for your interest in strengthening the Republican Party. To receive updates, please fill out the information.
They have your zip code as the Upper St. Clair zip code. I wonder why that's probably why
somebody in Upper St. Clair did it.
Signed you up. That's awesome. Leave it.
Okay.
So I think you should totally.
I'll take the survey.
Yeah. You got to double. You got to double down on those illegal immigrants. Yep. Yep. Hold the line on gay marriage.
That's right. You go down with the NRA. Don't really? Yep. I like this.
He asked,
and Reince also is from Wisconsin. As a fellow Badger. That's what we call ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Badgers. And badgers are nasty little animals. They're scary. They're mean. They're like Reince Priebus.
I don't think he's scary. I think he's kind of noodly myself.
Yeah.
But hey, we killed an hour.
We did? Jeez. That was easy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Potta.
It's always good to be here, Ms. Cullen.
Uh-huh. And tomorrow, Mr. Sokolowski will join us, and I'll try to get a word in edgewise. He's getting more and more cantankerous.
We just need to give him a show, probably.
Why don't you just do that?
No, I'll talk to the boss man about it today.
Give him his own show so he can stop trying to just take over mine.
Yeah, the studio is empty most of the day, so.
That's right.
We'll have to get a new banner, though.
Well,
it's too bad that one cost us a pretty penny, I can tell you.
Well, with his art connections, I'm sure you could have something really wonderful. And What do you think?
I agree.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everybody.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.